I'm continuing my reading. What I'm doing here is, in this series, is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a little bit as I move along. I am currently in the Book of Numbers. This will be chapter 11, but I will mention you will hear my son playing around in the background. I have him with me today off camera. So, chapter 11. Fire from the Lord consumes rebels in Israel. Israel murmurs and lusts for flesh instead of manna. Moses complains that he cannot bear the burden alone. He is commanded to choose 70 elders to assist him. The Lord promises flesh unto Israel until Israel is surfeited therewith. The 70 elders chosen, they prophesy, the Lord comes down. Eldad and Medad prophesy in the camp. Israel surfeited with quail. They lust, a great plague follows, and many die. So there's a lot going on in this chapter. It's not real long, but there's a lot. So maybe we'll do this in 2 videos. And when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them, and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. And the people cried unto Moses, and when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched. And he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burnt among them. So we're not given a lot of detail on this particular event, but this is the first murmuring of Israel in the wilderness, and the first time God punishes in Israel. So it says a fire, apparently on the outskirts of the camp, a fire broke out, and a number of people died, property damage, and all that. So, verse 4. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again, and said, Who shall give us flesh to eat? We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers, and the melons, and the leeks, and the onions, and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all beside this manna before our eyes. And the manna was as coriander seed, and the color thereof was the color of bdellium. And the people went about and gathered it, and ground it in mills, or beat it in a mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was as the taste of fresh oil. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it. Or with it. Anyways. So this is to know. It wasn't the Israelites that started the murmuring in this particular instance. It says the mixed multitude. These are the Egyptians that came out of Egypt with the Israelites. They're the ones that start the murmuring. It says they fell a-lusting, meaning that they are... lusting can be both of a sexual nature or just lusting after things, particularly food. And the complaint is that all they have to eat is manna, and they don't have the variety that they did in Egypt. So, verse 10. Then Moses heard the people weep throughout their families, every man in the door of his tent. And the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. Moses also was displeased. And Moses said unto the Lord, Wherefore hast thou afflicted thy servant? And wherefore have I not found favor in thy sight, that thou layest the burden of all this people upon me? Have I conceived all this people? Have I begotten them, that thou shouldest say unto me, Carry them in thy bosom, as a nursing father beareth the sucking child, unto the land which thou swearest unto their fathers? Whence should I have flesh to give unto all this people? For they weep unto me, saying, Give us flesh, that we may eat. I am not able to bear all this people alone, because it is too heavy for me. And if thou deal thus with me, kill me, I pray thee, out of hand, if I have found favor in thy sight, and let me not see my wretchedness. See, I like Moses' lamentation here. It's too much for one man. So he'd rather just have it over with than have to deal with this. And yet Moses had to deal with a whole lot even before now with Israel. So, verse 16. And the Lord said unto Moses, Gather unto me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be the elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them unto the tabernacle of the congregation, that they may stand there with thee. And I will come down and talk with thee there, and I will take of the Spirit which is upon thee, and will put it upon them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with thee, that thou bear it not thyself alone. And say thou unto the people, sanctify yourselves against the morrow, and ye shall eat flesh. For ye have wept in the ears of the Lord, saying, who shall give us flesh to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you flesh, and ye shall eat. Ye shall not eat 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, neither 10 days, nor 20 days, but even a whole month, until it come out at your nostrils, and it be loathsome unto you, because that ye have despised the Lord which is among you, and have wept before him, saying, why came we forth out of Egypt? And Moses said, the people among you whom I am are 600,000 footmen. And thou hast said, I will give them flesh, that they may eat a whole month. Shall the flocks and the herds be slain for them to suffice them? Or shall all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them to suffice them? And the Lord said unto Moses, is the Lord's hand waxed short? Thou shalt see now whether my word shall come to pass unto thee or not. Now here's another interesting one. First, this is the answer to Moses' prayer. He's saying, okay, I understand it's too much for you. So we're going to call the first quorum of 70. Remember in a previous chapter, there were 70 elders who went up into the mountain with Moses and Aaron. They didn't see God, but they did go on to the mountain of Sinai instead of being down in the camp. Now this is the formal calling of that first quorum of 70. Whether it's the same 70 or a different 70, we don't really know. It's not really clarified. But I tend to think it probably is. Anyways, I also, like says, we're going to give them enough meat to last a month. And Moses, like, wait a minute, how are you going to, we can't just slaughter all the animals. How are we going to eat meat for a month? And God's response, is the Lord's hand waxed short? It's like, don't question me. I told you what's going to happen. Just wait. It'll happen. So, verse 24. And Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord, and gathered the 70 men of the elders of the people, and set them round about the tabernacle. And the Lord came down in a cloud, and spake unto him, and took of the Spirit that was upon him, and gave it unto the 70 elders. And it came to pass that when the Spirit rested upon them, they prophesied and did not cease. But there remained 2 of the men in the camp. The name of the one was Eldad, and the name of the other Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them, and they were of them that were written, but went not out unto the tabernacle, and they prophesied in the camp. And there ran a young man, and told Moses, and said, Eldad and Medad do prophesy in the camp. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of Moses, one of his young men, answered and said, my lord Moses, forbid them. And Moses said unto him, enviest thou for my sake? Would God that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his Spirit upon them. And Moses gat him into the camp, he and the elders of Israel. Okay, so I do like this story. This is a fun one too, because the 70 elders are gathered to the tabernacle, and they are ordained, and the spirit of prophecy rests on all of them. But 2 of them aren't there. 2 of them don't make it to the gathering. Why? We aren't told, but they don't make it. But the Spirit still touches them, and they begin to prophesy out in the camp. And word is brought in, and Moses and Joshua, he said, wait a minute. They weren't here. They're not supposed to be getting the Spirit. And Moses is like, oh, let them have it. I want everybody to have it if they can. It'd make my job so much easier if everybody was a prophet. I wouldn't have to worry too much about it. So, and I love that. Envious thou for my sake? Like, don't worry. The prophet doesn't really want to be the only one prophesying. He doesn't want to be the exclusive one to talk to the Lord. He wants everybody to talk to the Lord. It's just that not everybody can. Not everybody's prepared to do that. But anybody who is, let them talk to the Lord, because that's less of a burden. That lessens the burden that's placed on the prophet. It's a great story. But let us finish this off. Verse 31. And there went forth a wind from the Lord, and brought quails from the sea, and let them fall by the camp, as it were a day's journey on this side, and as it were a day's journey on the other side, round about the camp, and as it were 2 cubits high upon the face of the earth. And the people stood up all that day and all that night and all the next day, and they gathered the quails. He that gathered least gathered 10 homers, and they spread them all abroad for themselves round about the camp. And while the flesh was yet between their teeth, ere it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was kindled against the people, and the Lord smote the people with a very great plague. And he called the name of that place Kibroth Hattava, because there they buried the people that lusted. And the people journeyed from Kibroth Hattava unto Hazeroth, and abode at Hazeroth. Kibroth Hattava means graves of lust. So God brings in the storm, brings in the quails. So 2 cubits high, that's 3 feet deep. 3 feet deep of the dead bodies of quails. And the people that lusted after flesh, they just went out and gorged themselves. And it says even before they stopped chewing, the plague spread it, which means these were not freshly dead bodies. I've always gotten the impression here that God brought them a pile of rotting bodies, and they were just so consumed with this desire to eat meat that they didn't think about it. And they just started eating the dead bodies, and this caused disease and everything to spread among the people. That's why it's also said, the plague was among them that lusted. So now let me see if we a homer. Okay, homer is 10 ephors, which is equivalent to a bath. Huh. Wow. So a bath is 8 gallons, or just over 8 gallons in liquid. An ephah is an equivalent weight of 8 gallons. Now, a gallon is approximately 8 pounds, so you're talking 64, well, about 65 pounds. A homer is 10 ephahs. That's 650 pounds. And it says here that he who gathered the least gathered, what was it, 10 homers? I don't know if these calculations are really accurate, because that would be 6,000 pounds. I think it's more talking in the volume rather than the weight. But still, you're talking 80 gallons of meat. So, anyways, I'll see you in the next one.